If you clicked on this video, you probably love Elden Ring, or maybe you love From Software, or maybe you've been wanting to get into Elden Ring, maybe get into the story, get into the lore that they oh so talk about with these From Software games, but without being absolutely fucking destroyed and pummeled into the ground. But if you were expecting a manga that was giving you exactly what happened in Elden Ring, beat for beat in terms of the story, while giving the main character a personality, you're half right. Because at the end of the day, the Elden Ring manga is not a typical manga adaptation. There have been many manga adaptations of video games throughout the years, actually. Kingdom Hearts, which literally just condenses what happens in the entire game into literally just a manga. Yokai Watch, Assassin's Creed even got one. It's crazy how these can be spin-offs and literal adaptations of a property that you can choose to play or read. But for Elden Ring, it's a little bit different. The manga starts exactly like the video game. As soon as you boot it up, you're hit with that intro cutscene. You're hit by those exact words spoken by the narrator. He gives you the synopsis. He gives you when the Elden Ring is broken, when the demigods fight each other, those that the Grace calls out to. My favorite, of course, my boy, the Dung Eater. But of course, it calls out to a lowly tarnished of no renown. You're treated at the end of this cutscene to a brilliant piece of artwork, which is the wretched Tarnished, our main character, face down in the mud with his underwear nearly fallen off, and Melina really not sure if this is the hero of our story. In blatant text, this is a comedy manga. So if your any expectations should be out the door by now, because if you're a big fan, you probably know Elden Ring is a really intense, serious, dark, gritty world. Well, this is not so much a dark, gritty manga. But this is in fact a fun adventure comedy fantasy of a young man knowing all about where to go or what to do. If anything, this is a manga about someone who doesn't know anything about From Software, doesn't know anything about Elden Ring, and literally just having a go. So, sit with me and enjoy as I tell you my experience of reading the Elden Ring manga. Now, before we begin in telling you what I thought and the shit that happens in this manga, I just have to clarify, I've played Souls games a little bit throughout my career. For Elden Ring, I've played maybe like 7 hours. I've seen some lore. I see the typical Berserk reference because for me, I am someone who is very much interested in the world of Elden Ring, and I am not someone who is versed in the lore of Elden Ring. So when I saw there was this comedy and I thought, hey, I've played a bit, maybe I'll have some conception of what happens, we'll give it a go. So again, this manga, if you want a serious telling, this is not the one for you. But if you're interested in seeing some of the shit that this manga tells you, especially if you're someone who doesn't watch or play Elden Ring and wants to read a fun comedy, bear with me. Now I'm going to talk about at least some of the first 6 chapters and my favorite parts and what I think makes them so unique and great as just a comedy manga, and how it's able to take a different approach to adaptation. When I first saw this manga, I thought it was a fan project, but in terms, it's actually something that is commissioned by, you know, legitimate Japanese manga companies. And you can actually read the chapters for free on Comic Walker, so if you want to go there and not know anything about spoilers, go ahead. You literally go through the beginnings of the game, where the main character is saved by Melina with the Grace and Torrent, and then is treated to the guy with the mask. I don't know his name, I don't give a fuck, but he's a guy with the mask. And this main character that we're treated to, who we later call Asio, is very much the same, where people are telling him shit as if he is a typical player and a lowly tarnished. Literally just say, you're here to seek the Elden Ring, yes? Yes, of course, don't deny it. And he's like, I don't know what the fucking Elden Ring is. Why are you saying all these words? It's meant to replicate the engagement of someone who doesn't know what Elden Ring is, playing it for the first time. But he's not a player, he's just a guy who's been isekai'd. He doesn't remember his past and he doesn't know where his clothes went or how he got here in the first place. So I think maybe part of the actual story aspect is maybe finding out. But after getting through him and, you know, meeting that fucking asshole horse rider just further on, I'm still not over, he ventures towards Stormvale Castle, which the Grace leads him to, and he's told many different, pretty much gameplay mechanics of how to get there. and he's extremely distraught at how many people tried to kill him along the way. And he meets Melina, who tells him that Torrent was the one who chose him and that she is there to play, again, the role of maiden, just like in the game. But again, this is meant to show how, in a story aspect, the gameplay mechanics that are summed up for Asio in terms of him learning about how runes work and how to level up. But he's someone, again, who doesn't really understand the very cryptic, poetic way in which characters talk in this world. So he's used as the foil in terms of what I would call the One Punch Man foil, where he takes the weird shit that's happening in terms of Elden Ring lore and trying to just distill it into a normal context for the reader and for people who probably played it and didn't actually understand what it is that they're trying to say. Again, she's trying to use runes of power, and he's just like, you're using all these words I don't understand, just speak normal basic English. And of course she hits you with the, you level up. To which Asio's like, yo, I get that, I can level up. And she makes the deal with him. She will be the person who converts the runes into power as long as he makes his way to the Erd Tree. And it's not going to be a simple one, because we already know what lies ahead of Stormvale Castle. But first he ventures out with Torrent to, I guess, go and get some XP. Now, we learn a couple different things about what is going to take place further on. Again, this manga doesn't take itself very seriously. Asio is never in any technical real danger, as he always runs away, or he just gets beaten up a little bit so that the enemies then, go back to their normal thing. Again, fucking asshole on horse. And it also kind of takes characters who we don't give a shit about or who just stay in one place and show that they have another side to them in terms of their daily life. Like the mask guy is a farmer. He's a farmer, which is kind of cool, but it's like, what the fuck? It kind of makes this other way of looking at this very mystical world as just a place that people live in for whatever reason. Most chapters further on with Asio deal with him just trying to fucking live, man. Trying to survive in this harsh world. He gets chased by crabs, he gets chased by the rabid dogs, he gets chased by those fucked up zombie dudes, and then he finds Patches, who lets him into the thievery of being a part of the Patches gang. And I'd never met Patches in my playthrough, but I was aware of his persona and his quest line, apparently. And it's something that I found to be kind of interesting in showing that, Asio is going to be meeting the characters that the player would have met in their own journey. And if this is a long-running manga, then we've got a lot of people to meet. Patch's little storyline is cool because it actually sets up its own way in which players come across characters. Similar to the Breath of the Wild concept, when you start the video game, you can go in whatever direction you want after a certain checkpoint. You can go to certain places that you want. There is no set path specifically. There's an objective, and then there's a way in which to get that objective through whichever direction is what's engaging for the player. Now, of course, Elden Ring followed this similar style. You need to get to the Erd Tree, but you can kind of take whatever route you want to get there in terms of meeting characters, doing certain quests, go off to the far right, go off to the far left, whatever you want, find secrets. And it's through Asio's own way of trying to find a way in which to live that he falls in with Patches and then is forced to go and try and rob Kale. And again, it kind of reflects the video game in a way. You can make choices of killing anyone you come across if you really wanted to. You could kill Kale and just take whatever he has on him. You could kill Patches, or you could talk to him. These options are presented to Asio, as he is someone who is meant to be a base for which the reader puts themselves on, but at the same time, he shows his own personality, to which is not your typical hero. He's cowardly, he's dumb, he's not strong at all. He's a wretch with a club and a very revealing loincloth. That's pretty much our hero at this point. And he chooses not to rob Kale, which I guess shows a bit more of his character and shows again the other sides of characters that you may only get to see one side of depending on how you play. So the manga's trying to show you different avenues of one character and different sides to them by also showing you the different routes, which pushes the story forward with Asio realizing that this is not a fair world in which he lives in. Not that the stakes are too high necessarily, because it has the same vein as One Punch Man. You'll hear me reference it again. It's not like there are stakes that will kill Asio or that he's ever in real danger, but the circumstances which he finds himself in that the player may have played and died by can relate in knowing how terrible and terrifying it was, or demoralizing it was to die to the crab, the bear, to God forbid Patches. But I think what it does well is humanizes, or at least demythologizes, if that's a word, characters. When Asio falls out of love with Patches, he goes back to Kale, and Kale offers to give him the crafting tools that he needs to progress in the game, right? And this pretty much kicks off my favorite chapters so far, and it's kind of the most recent chapters of the manga. Asio is told that if he wants the stuff he needs to craft better stuff and equipment, because again, loincloth, he is told that he can run an errand for him and he'll give him the stuff for free of charge. So Kale says, go to the woods and find a man called Blythe. And Blythe is, again, exactly like in the game. You go out into the woods and you use the snap emote, and Asio does it, and out of nowhere a bear comes, to which Blythe saves him. Cool as fuck, and slashes that fucking monster down, saving Asio. But it turns out it ventures into the quest line that Blythe has in the game, takes a bit more of a narrative way, and again puts that comedic twist on it. Blythe said he's looking for Darrowell, and that the map that Kale told Asio to bring to him is going to show him where Darrowell has been hiding. But unfortunately, because Blythe is, half wolf, he can't figure out how to read the map. So Asio has to take him with him. And along the way, we learn that Blythe, not only because he's half wolf, is actually someone who not only inherits the traits as well of being an animal, where, wolves come out to attack them and instead decide to play with Blythe by biting at his arm and right into the bone and biting at his fucking jugular. Asio tries to lure them away, but by throwing a bone, him and the wolves end up chasing after it. So I fucking love this shit, man. I love this vibe that it's giving us about this very serious character and making him just stupidly funny. In my playthrough, I found Darrowell of my own, just randomly. It was a boss and I thought I should try and beat him. And I did on my own. And I didn't know of this questline with Blythe. So when I went there, I found Darrowell. And in the manga, the map that Asio uses is that circle to which they're transported to fight Darrowell. And Darrowell has his own voice lines and interactions. Blythe explains that Darrowell betrayed him and Rani, and he was a part of Rani's bodyguard. Now again, to a certain degree, from what I know, the manga is pretty specific and correct about the lore. And I know for a fact that what I'm about to tell you doesn't happen in the lore of the game. But from what I know, it seems to be they take the characters predominantly in the lore and try and make sure that they're consistent, and then they put their own comedic twist for the stuff that isn't really specified. So when they're confronted by Darrowell, Melina's also there to translate what's happening because they start speaking in a different tongue. Blade accuses Darrowell of betraying Rani, and Asio learns who Rani is from Melina. She is told that she was a witch of great power of a certain family, and she was one of the people who may or may not have been behind the Night of the Black Knives. To which, as someone who didn't get certain far in the game to kind of learn this stuff, was really cool. This was a serious side to the manga that was like, oh shit, that's cool. And I started to wonder, what did Darrowell do? How did he betray her? And so the biggest betrayal of all time was revealed. Darrowell and Blaive were a part of the Rani fan club, and they would dress up little dolls like Rani to signify her beauty and her coolness. And Darrowell decided to dress up Rani in a completely different way, non-sexual way, but regardless, a different way that was besmirching to her name. And so he cannot be forgiven for this. Blaive says that this is defiling Rani, and the only true way to dress her up is how she looks. It is disgusting what he's doing. He's projecting his own forms of beauty onto Rani when she's already beautiful herself. And I could not stop fucking laughing at this. This was not only the most serious duel of this manga so far, but the funniest. I was thinking this was the highest stakes possible, and it is now the most dumbest situation I ever thought. Seeing Blaive, an image of Blaive, this cool badass who, yeah, Berserk fans probably look at and think fucking sick, holding a little Rani doll is just pure gold. It's just pure gold. I fucking love it. The battles in which this little skirmish takes place are also very cool in terms of the dynamics. It's a stupid reason for fighting, but at the same time, it's a very serious, also stupid, but at the same time very serious duel, and it's portrayed making this manga, and if you read One Punch Man and a lot of those other manga that take very serious situations or take very stupid situations and reverse them, are incredible. It's not if you read Berserk you'll like this, it's if you read One Punch Man and Way of the House Husband, you will like this manga. And if you happen to also like Elden Ring at the same time, you will love it. In that whole skirmish, Melina just decides, I'm gonna fucking kill Darryl because I'm sick of translating this shit. Right when Blaive is like, you know, about to be destroyed by the possibility of Rani being dressed up in something else. And so ends this quest, and Asio, you know, makes a friend. And he learns a bit more about Blaive's, you know, backstory, and they become good friends. He's even offered that if you go to this certain blacksmith, like in the game, tell him that he sent you and he'll be able to help you out, which again ties in well. It's taking the gameplay aspects but making it so that they're actually story beats, and done in a way that doesn't feel like very linear. It feels like it's arching into all the possibilities while still making sure that you're experiencing everything at the same time, which is really, really awesome. I will kind of stop talking about chapters there because the next chapter, there was another thing I experienced in my gameplay, which was meeting Rani. That's again where it felt like the story was something that was very serious, very consistent, and the comedy as well highlighted how kind of ridiculous Asio is as a character, but at the same time made me intrigued about who Rani is, her backstory. Why does she want Asio? What is her goal? What does she want? What is her deal that she wants to make? It genuinely makes me want to go back and play the game so I know these answers instead of reading this manga. But at the same time, the manga is presenting in a way that is a bit more consumable than the subtle and a bit more niche way, I guess, of trying to read about certain things and items and delving in a bit more than you would in the video game. I'm not saying the video game is telling you the story in a bad way, because again, I'm not someone who experienced it that way in a very quick way. But having read it and given it a little taste makes me more intrigued to know about the story of Elden Ring, or at least the lore of Elden Ring. So much so that it looks like I'm going to be on a YouTube fucking binge after this one, boys. Now, I will say, besides just having this ability to make jokes and being somewhat consistent with the video game, it's not in any way a tie-in. It's not trying to get you to play the video game. It's just trying to tell a story to fans who love it and to people who maybe don't know it. You could read this being a fan or not. Honestly, you could. I think so many people would be interested in trying to get into it. I'm gonna call it now. This is the cyberpunk edge runners of Elden Ring, but the difference being that Elden Ring was already a complete game and it was pretty much playable and it was enjoyable from the start. The only people who didn't like it were the people at Ubisoft, so, you know, maybe it's for the Ubisoft people. I don't know. Besides some of these things that are just story-based and comedy-based, the artwork is great. The artwork is consistent. The artwork has different ebbs and flows. Take this very detailed Gothic era art style, but then add in, of course, the memey faces of Asio, who is either having a mental breakdown in the world he is, or is just so terrified of everything that he can't make a decision and is distrustful of everyone, but is also trustful of the wrong people and distrusts all the people who want to help him. Or he's a lovable idiot, what can I say? And I am interested to see what happens when he's faced with a challenge of his own, because despite being someone who can't fight and is still very poor in intelligence, which Melina literally says every time I give you runes, I'm going to bump up that intelligence because, man, you're dumb. It's interesting to see if Asio gets into even harder situations when you play as certain classes. Maybe you're challenging yourself, and I want to see if character really reveals itself in true battles, because as of yet, we haven't experienced a boss battle for Asio to triumph over. You can't progress in the game without fighting certain bosses. You can cheese your way through other bosses and you could just not fight them at all and not be any of your business. But for Asio, there is going to be a point where he has to fight them. I'm keen for some of that action and I'm keen for that comedy. So I really think this is kind of a little underrated manga, especially even though it's a licensed property. I would urge you to go read it. Honestly, it makes me want to go back and play the game, so subscribe. I might do it, who knows, I might do it. But that's what I think, guys. Let me know if you have read it, what you think. If you're an Elden Ring player and you love the lore, tell me, does the manga make you feel like even more invested in it? Like the gaps it fills, or at least substitutes what you already know it substitutes? Please, I'd love to know. And if you're someone who doesn't play Elden Ring and you're interested now, or maybe you're just interested in the manga, tell me what you think. Tell me, do you want to give it a go? Or if you only read the manga and you don't want to play the game, what's something that is the line for you? But that's all from me. I appreciate you for watching to the end. If you enjoy the video, hey, like, subscribe, really helps me out. Might do an Elden Ring stream again, I don't know. My mental well-being might be able to handle it, possibly. But thank you for watching again. My name's Mugen, as always, have a good one.